Well, injuries are a part of any season, which is why we have partnered with AHN this NFL season.
This week, we're taking a look at Dawand Jones, the leg injury he suffered last week. What's the recovery process with his season now over?
Two lower leg bones below the knee. One is your tibia and one is your fibula. The fibula lives on the outer part of your leg. And so, if you feel that outer ankle bone, that's the very end of your fibula. So it's partly at the ankle, and then it comes all the way up and stops just below your knee. Of the two bones, it's what we call a non-weight bearing bone. So when we put weight through our knee, it all ends up going through the tibia itself. And so the fibula is there for structural support, but not what we call a weight-bearing bone. And so our treatment for a fibula fracture is much different than it would be for a tibia fracture. Yeah, so for a fibula, often we don't need to cast, for instance. A fibula fracture, often we can, I guess it depends on the angulation, right? So when a bone fractures, you can have what we call a displaced fracture, where the two segments are no longer close to each other and they are sort of separated. Obviously, that's a different that's a more intense fracture versus a non-displaced fracture, which means the two fragments of the bone that's broken are still in relative close proximity to each other. And so I don't know the specifics of this injury, but a non-displaced fibular fracture could be treated fairly conservatively, meaning a walking boot, and sometimes we even allow weight bearing, but with somebody to wear to use a walking boot. And so you'll see people who wear walking boots. Those are those larger sort of moon boot type of things that usually comes up just below the knee. And those are typically adequate for a fibular fracture. And again, it goes back down to the nature of the severity of the initial injury. So if it's in this non-displaced fracture, and it's not a bone that we put a lot of weight through, using a walking boot, or sometimes a walking boot and a knee scooter. You'll see people who use a little scooter just to take the weight off of that. That's not a very long process. Time-wise, sometimes just can be a couple of weeks, maybe 3 to 6 weeks. Again, it really depends on the severity of the fracture. So it's hard to completely speculate based on that. Again, going back to that severity of the fracture, it can depend.